What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and we're here talking about a new Warhammer Community article. That's pretty interesting because it does something that Games Workshop hasn't really done that much before in the past, and that is actually ask the community their opinion on Warhammer 40k things. I was supposed to be working on a different video today, but this came up and I thought it was worth talking about, if only to encourage everyone to take this Warhammer 40k Gamers survey. So today, on November 4th, 2021, Games Workshop has made this survey available and allowed feedback from the community on ways that they can improve the rules, almost specifically the rules of Warhammer 40k, which is great. Now, as much as I like pooping on Games Workshop, as much as the next guy for their bad rules and questionable business practices and terrible QA, I do think it is important to compliment them for doing good stuff when they do it. And I do think a community survey is definitely a good thing. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is a great example of a good community survey, but every little bit counts. And even if there's one iota of a chance that it will actually affect GW policy or the future of Warhammer 40k, in my opinion, it's worth participating since it literally takes like 2 minutes. I mean, it's basically a no-brainer. So I highly encourage everyone who's watching this video to take a look at the survey and drop in their thoughts to Games Workshop. I've included links to the survey in the video description and pinned comments so you can check it out yourself. 40k players have a lot of opinions about the game of 40k, especially about the relatively broken state of the game competitively at the moment. So it's time for us gamers to put our money where our mouth is and use a format that Games Workshop actually might pay attention to make those opinions heard. Maybe they'll pay attention. I don't know. It's probably in my dream. Now, like I said before, the survey isn't perfect, and there is definitely some criticism to be leveled at a survey designed, whether intentionally or not, to elicit some complimentary responses that the Games Workshop execs can show to their investors. So let's go through the survey real quick and talk about some of the questions leveled and where they may be problematic. Now, as I was taking down these notes, some folks in the Discord community, link in the description, shameless plug, come hang out with us, noticed that the survey was actually being dynamically edited. When the survey is changed on SurveyMonkey, where the survey is being hosted, it boots out anyone currently answering the questions. Based on my reading, I haven't noticed any questions that have changed. I'm not saying that they haven't, I just didn't notice them. More unfortunately, this has also made it almost impossible for some people to complete the survey, since as the edits go through, every time they go through to restart their survey and complete new questions, they get booted out again. We were just talking about how GWQA is bad, so this might just be par for the course. So let's jump into this survey real quick. It starts with some very basic background info, asking players when the last time they played Warhammer 40k is. One thing that is very important to note in this question, however, is that the remainder of the survey changes based on your response to this one. If you select I've never played, or I've played more than 2 years ago, for example, the survey basically ends early, only with a question about why you haven't played or you haven't played in so long, and then immediately submitting your result. Well, it makes sense that Games Workshop might not want to balance the game based on the feedback from somebody who's never played it. It also removes the opportunity to generate some useful feedback about the accessibility of the system, which isn't super great. That said, you should definitely not falsify your info in order to unlock more survey questions. They're not achievements in a video game, and lying on a survey isn't particularly useful to anybody. Now, as we move forward, it asks some more general basic questions about our experience interacting with Warhammer 40k and the types of games that we typically like to play. Definitely put that you use points in because power level is the worst. There is this interesting question about playing to win. There are also these spectrum questions about the complexity and accessibility of Warhammer 40k, which I do really appreciate because that is one thing that I think is important to highlight in this survey. Unfortunately for me, I think I can strongly disagree with all of the statements being represented here. It's easy to get started with Warhammer 40k. Nope, it's expensive and the rules are very complicated. The complexity level is ridiculous, and the rules are not easy to learn. There are so many exceptions and redundancies in the rules, it's very silly. And I would definitely like to change a lot of things about the current game of Warhammer 40k. Now, it's where we get to these multiple entry questions that things get kind of weird. For example, the question here, how would we describe the Warhammer 40k rules, has 4 negatively connoted responses. You can talk about it being complicated, hard to understand, having too many rules, or not enough rules. It has 7 positive responses. For example, talking about how the game is well written, fun, thematic, balanced, and suitable for everyone. Simple could go either way, in fairness, but I think generally would be viewed as a positive response. And then we have 2 neutral responses here, which is that it's suitable for people starting out or suitable for expert players, neither of which are really contradictory or particularly contentious. It's just whether or not the game is sort of difficult to master or easily accessible. Now, the issue with this question is that rather than presenting a spectrum of responses like the previous questions, this one and questions like it remove nuance from the question and guides the participant towards these positive responses by giving a plethora of positive responses that they can answer. Essentially, the same goes for this Battleforged Army question. Let me tell you about how much I think Battleforged Army creation is way too complicated. And also this GT Mission Pack question. I assume that this pops up if you've selected that you typically play the GT Mission Pack. Now, a better way to have framed these questions would have been to break them down into several statements and survey them on a spectrum, which this survey does in other circumstances. Asking questions like, what is your response to the statement, quote, stratagems are too numerous in 40k, or, quote, stratagems are too complex, or, for example, quote, stratagems offer interesting tactical decisions, and then letting participants agree or disagree, strongly disagree, answer on that spectrum would furnish more useful responses and information. Now, I actually really like the inclusion of this question about different detachments from different factions in the army, because it does look like one of the angles of this survey is analyzing the need for new army construction rules in 40k, which I do think 40k greatly needs. The army construction rules, especially since they often differ from faction to faction, are insanely complicated in Warhammer 40k, and I definitely think the game would benefit from some easier list construction. Now, the last few questions are pretty weird. For example, why would anyone argue that, in this case, fairness is unimportant in any game, especially a competitive game where you're trying to defeat another player? Or in the follow-up questions, that rules erratas and points updates are bad for the game. I don't know if anyone holds that opinion. Maybe they're looking for feedback to support a reinforcement of their balancing team. I would hope that that's the case. Maybe they're looking for the opposite. I hope that that's not the case. That would be very bad. Lastly, they finish up on some demographic, asking about your current living situation. This question makes no sense. What does children left home even mean? Am I answering that I'm a child that's been left at home to my own devices? Or did I just, like, accidentally leave my children at home when I went to work and I'm now answering the Warhammer 40k gamer survey at work? I don't understand. I don't get it. What does this mean? Now, previous to this question, they do have an open response section. And some people are really taking this to heart to leave heartfelt feedback for the dev team. I wrote about 1.5 pages in this little box. I was doing it on my phone too, like an absolute madman. And I posted it on Twitter, so if you want to go read the entire diatribe, you can check it out over there at Trevi the Great. And plenty of folks are also taking to Twitter to share their responses. In my opinion, this is a place where the community speaking with a unified voice can potentially help shape the future of the game, bringing up the need for less Alpha Strike-oriented game design, better QA, better rules errata, greater accessibility, and the greater digitization of the game. These are all important issues, in my opinion, that it's vital to bring up in this space. Now, that said, it remains to be seen whether the results of this survey will even matter. It could just be a callous marketing ploy to make the Warhammer community think that Games Workshop cares about their opinion, and the results of this survey may just be thrown in the garbage. Whether or not that's the case, I do still think it's important to participate, because if there is a chance that the designers and company behind them will listen to community feedback and put those additional resources into improving the game, it's going to be great for everyone, and the survey only takes about 2 minutes. Assuming you can get to the end. If you get cut off or it gets edited and you get booted out, I'm sorry, that sucks. So anyway, that's all I have to say about the Warhammer 40k Gamers survey. Let me know down below whether or not you think that this survey is going to make a difference in the future of 40k, and some of the opinions and ideas that you brought to Games Workshop in your own entries in the survey. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Big thanks over to my patrons at patreon.com/tacticaltortoise. Also, YouTube channel members, Twitch subscribers. All those people are phenomenal. Help to keep the lights on over here. And remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.